Welcome to our talk. As said, I will talk first more about the mobile part of our presentation, and after that, Marco will focus on the REST API and web services. So, the first part is PDF web services for mobile devices. First, an overview about our company. We are based in Switzerland, in Zurich. As said, we are co-founder of the PDF Association. We have more than 4,000 customers in over 70 countries. We are mostly producing software for server-based processing of PDF documents, all variants of it. And yeah, that's about us. So, mobile, as we heard, it's very important nowadays. There are many people who are mobile only, and also just the use of mobile phones, of tablets, of devices has rapidly grown over the last years. So nowadays there are more mobile users than desktop users in the world, and the step is still growing. And also not only the number of devices or the number of the users is high, it's also the number of hours spent on the device is larger than on desktop devices. So mobile is different. Of course, it's not only on the device that looks different, it's also the hardware that is significantly different than on desktop devices. There is a limited resource for CPU, so you do not have the same power for computing. And also the architecture, of course, is different for most devices. So if you are developing software, that's a big change for you. Then, of course, the operating systems change. So we mostly have iOS and Android on mobile devices, whereas on desktop we have more and of course different kind of operating systems. Then there's the user interface that changes with the device, and if you create an application, it's very important that the user can interact with the application and not just deploy a desktop application for a mobile device. It needs to be user-friendly, and for that you need to adapt to this user interface. And also it's an expectancy for users. So on desktops we are used to applications that are often more difficult to install, it takes longer, and on mobile devices we just want to install it with one click, it just has to work. We often require internet connections, we are used to that, so the expectancy of the users is quite different for a mobile device or for a mobile application than for a desktop application. Now, also for developing view, if you build an application, there's a high investment if you want to switch to mobile applications. So all the experience that we had with desktop and server tools, we can no longer apply this for mobile devices. So this changes. You have to adapt to it. It's also can be high risk if you want to switch or produce your software for these devices. And also the applications and libraries that you are used to use or that you require are different and limited on mobile devices. So you have to consider this if you are building your application for such an environment. So that's where we use web services. They have quite a few advantages for such a scenario. You can use a heterogeneous system. So you can have your servers in the cloud or in your own data center, wherever you have it, and you can use a heterogeneous system. So you can have Windows and Linux machines, you can use all the libraries that you're used to, and all the different operating systems. So you have quite an advantage here. You can also use all your experience that you have with these applications, with your code, with your applications, with your libraries, and so on. So also with the maintenance of the system, you have it under control, and that's a huge positive factor if you are deploying. Also, you have almost unlimited resources and power. You can just increase the number of servers or the processors that you use. Whereas on a mobile device, you're quite limited with what you have and what you can use for your application. It also is easier when you have everything under your control or just know where you deploy your application. You can more easily update your library. You can also use, if you have a web service, you can have multiple endpoints so that when you're updating and something fails, you can use the old version or just have much more flexibility in case of deployment and maintainability than if you just have one mobile application that runs all on one device. Also for maintenance and bug detection, if you can check your system and what goes wrong, it's much easier than when you have to ask the user to provide with some additional data about the problem. So it's much more difficult then to detect the problem and solve it. Of course, not everything is just good. There's also some challenges. You need a connection if you have a web service. So the mobile device needs to communicate with your service. It can be, mostly it will be an internet connection because mobile devices are almost always connected with Wi-Fi or mobile data. But of course, you can also use an internet connection or whatever you want. So you have some flexibility there as well. However, you need to transport your documents to the service in order to process it, and then, of course, the result needs to be transmitted back to the user. For this, security is very important. We all know that nowadays security is an issue and that you need to consider it in your architecture and how you deal with your documents and data. So you need to protect that. And also privacy is very important. So not only need you to ensure that the communication between the device and the server is secure, but also you need to trust the vendor that offers your service, or you need to host it on your own. But I think we all know that some enterprises cannot afford to lose the data or to get it leaked to somewhere else. So this is very important for many companies and people. So now we have an example for such a mobile application. We developed a simple app that runs on iOS and Android, where you just can add your files. It can be many different formats. And for us, I think for such an example, it's very important that you use the technologies that are used on this platform. So for mobile apps, we are used to share data with other applications. So it needs to be integrated into the system so that the user is familiar with how to work with it. So you can just add your documents there, and then you can configure the options. So you can set a name, and there are different kind of options that you can enable or disable, or can also be extended. There's not a limitation to just one or two. And then after that, the document will be sent to the service. It will be processed, and then you will get the result, either in the form of an output document or in form of a failure if something is wrong with the documents or with your settings. And after that, you have the file, and you can share it using the known mechanisms on this platform. That's an example for that. So that's the process, a simplified process, how this works. So there's the transmission of one or more files that is needed for the task to process. Then, of course, you process documents, and then you will have the output for you. Now, there are many challenges in this process. mostly if you're on a mobile device, you're on the road, connection can be lost, it can be interrupted, it can be slow. So at any point here during the transmission, the connection can fail, can be lost. So you need to offer the user a simple way to recover. So mostly you just retry and the user doesn't know that a problem occurred. So you need to have many failover points. You can improve this also by compress documents before you resend them. You can split large documents into chunks to send smaller pieces so that you can ensure that the piece was transmitted, and if only a small chunk of the data fails to be transmitted, you do not have to resend the whole file, but you can just resend a small part. So this will improve the reliability of the service, it will improve the performance, and yeah, for just it's a real life application. So as always, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. So the most challenging part for such application using a service is the error handling, because you have many points where you have to check if it worked, and if not, you need to figure out how to resolve the problem. Of course, you can just go back to the user and tell him something went wrong, try again, but you want to have a very reliable application, so you need to improve there and make your application as stable as possible in this environment that you have. The application has many opportunities like this. So since you have a clean interface between your application that you use and the web service, you can change one of them. You can add more applications on the client side. You can add more web services to improve failovers if something service is not available, or you can offer multiple services for different kind of users or customers that you have. You can also easily upgrade one part of it without changing the other one. So that adds a lot of flexibility. And of course, you can also very easily customize your client application. And it's very extendable. So if you have a customer that wants more than just convert or optimize documents, you can add OCR text recognition, you can add signatures. You can also integrate it in a workflow that a company has. So instead of transmitting the result back to the mobile application, you could also store it in an archive or send it to another application that will do further processing. So it's very extendable. It's also not limited to some of these examples. So there's many things that you can do for this. So in the next part, Marco will talk you more about the REST API.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for assisting here today. As I am already have been presented, introduced, I am Marco Grossi, founder and developer of iLovePDF.com. For whom doesn't know what is iLovePDF.com, it's a web service, free web service where we offer a variety of PDF modification tools like compress, merging, splitting, and many more. iLovePDF was born in 2010, the day I needed to merge two PDFs into one, and it took me more than 10 minutes to find out how to do it. So in that moment, I decided to develop a simple web service to merge and split PDF files. Since 2010 till now, iLovePDF has been growing till reaching more than 4 million unique users monthly, more than 8 million visits per month, and being one of the most top 3,000 most visited websites. And if iLovePDF.com is doing fine, why we decided to start an API REST to offer to our developers. Till now, we were focused on delivering the best experience to the final users. So we think we can also deliver a better experience and a quick development to all those developers that need a quick solution for the APDF processing problems. So this is the main reason that we think we can fit here and help these developers. Other reasons that we decided to make this API is because the architectural limitations that we just see with Christoph of mobile devices, for example. Also because there is no easy API REST to work with PDFs. By easy, I mean with good documentation and easy development and fast development. Also, our own users on iLovePDF has been asking us for an API because, of course, using our website for processing high volume of PDF files can be a tedious task. And of course, you cannot automatize some tasks for process PDF files. And of course, we reach a point where we need an API REST for ourselves because with our growth, we needed the benefits of an API to split the front end and the back end. So the idea of offering an API for a developer, it seems a good idea, but is not easy, and even is more difficult. We think it will be useful for client like us, like ourselves, because of course ourselves will be a client of this API REST. That means that the minimum amount that the API REST should be able to handle should be more or less 600 files per minute. That is the throughput that we are currently have on the website. So we are the starting point of the API will be this amount of files. Here is the topics we will be talking now. The infrastructure problems that we faced thinking about the infrastructure, the security of the PDFs, also building and maintaining the variety of PDF modification tools that we are offering in the API, and of course making the development easy for developers. The first point is the infrastructure. You have to think that when we code in iLovePDF, we also have to think in which machines will be execute this code. So hardware and infrastructure is a critical point for us, and of course, as everybody knows, failures in network and hardware happens, and it happens not every day, but once per week, maybe it can be possible. And of course, if you have to maintain a high number of servers at the same time, the task can start to be a little bit difficult. So we, having the experience of iLovePDF.com, we designed an infrastructure, a multi-data center infrastructure in 2 different locations in Europe, where every role of every server role, if one server goes down, this server will always has his replacement without any downtime with the same role for another server. For example, we have roles, balancers, proxies, workers, database. Everything is double checked and balanced between one of and the other data center. That means that even if one entire data center goes down, the API will still work. Also, we have for maintaining that high number of servers, we are using Ansible. Ansible, for you to understand, is like a template that you execute in all the servers at the same time. That, for example, that allow us to keep it maintained in less than 1 minute to update on our hotfix servers, 100 servers, 1,000 servers in less than a minute. And of course, some servers of our infrastructure are exclusively dedicated only to monitor the same infrastructure. that, of course, help us to spot problems, or we are immediately notified if something goes wrong. And of course, with this system, we can auto-fix some of the problems, but of course, the worst problems still need humans behind it.
What does Ansible do in Marcos? Did not fully understand that.
Okay, Ansible is when we execute. Ansible is like a template. It's commands that are executed automatically in all the servers at the same time.
Okay.
So we can deploy our latest patch for the API at the same servers, like 50 servers at the same time, 100 servers at the same time.
So sending many servers now.
Exactly. The next topic we want to talk is about security. It's not the same developing for ourselves in a controlled environment that developing for outside users in our environment. We don't know. Also, we have to face the client. Still, there is a lot of insecurity towards the cloud processing. Even having the experience of iLovePDF, we know that some big companies, doesn't allow their employees to upload their files to web services like iLovePDF, to preserve the confidentiality of the PDF files. And of course, these companies even block the domain. Domain. And of course, we can expect the same behavior towards the API. So how we resolved the problem of security? We offer two types of authentication: JSON Web Tokens, that is a standard. It's a token that signs the client of the API, and of course, for client-side code like JavaScript, we offer an authentication server so we allow the client do not expose the private key. Also, we offer domain filtering, IP filtering. This means that all requests from that API client that are not coming from the domain or IP configured, we will reject them. Also, the file the file removal in our servers are automatically triggered after an amount of time that can be 1 hour till 24 hours, depending on the API client. Also, the client can trigger immediately after download the processed file, so they can be sure that this file isn't anymore in our server. And our last layer of security is the file encryption server side. This file encryption, by file encryption, I don't mean providing a password, PDF password in the PDF uploaded and processed, but I mean file encryption in a file level, in a binary level. So the clients should be able to encrypt all kind of files, for example, images, PDFs, documents, everything. Of course, I can show you a design like the one of Christoph. The file is transmitted encrypted already with HTTPS to the API. Immediately after the file is uploaded, we encrypt the file with the file encryption key provided directly by the API client, because we never store this API key. The next request is the process request. Here, of course, the API client has to provide again this API key, API file encryption key, sorry. So we can decrypt the file just before processing it. We process it and re-encrypt again after it. And the last request is the download request, where we offer the buffer of the download of the serving the file unencrypted. But the file will be stored still encrypted on server always. So what does it mean? It means that even if an intruder gain access to our server, he won't be able never to extract the information of these files of the clients. Neither will us will be able to access to this information. The third challenge we faced is a variety of modification types, because there is no sense of having that infrastructure and not offering good quality and fast processing power. Of course, different kinds of processing need different operating system, for example, Linux and Windows. But of course, this is our problem. This is not the final user problem or the client problem. We have to face it for them. And of course, we face that many PDFs that we receive now in iLovePDF.com are damaged or corrupted. So we have been working closely with PDF tools to offer the best quality in processing, and of course, we are very happy with them. We are currently working on iLovePDF.com with this technology, and we implemented the same technology in the API. Of course, we have to have clear that we are input-output processor, and we have to make it clear also for our API clients that we are input-output PDF processing platform, API REST. In order to do that, we standardized the process in what we are calling a task. And a task is made of 4 clear steps. The step when is like a kind of handshake, where the balancer tells you which worker is for you, is assigned to you, so you can start the bloat. The bloat can happen directly from your local storage. Also, you can send, for example, a link or an URL, a public URL, and the servers will download it directly. Also, you can upload files from cloud servers, cloud services like Dropbox or Google Drive, providing information about this. We are able to access to these cloud services. Here are all the tools that we are currently offering. We are right now. There is a couple of more tools that here are not displayed, the last versions of the API, but are continuously improving the tools and adding even more. So the last challenge for us, it was make the development easy for the users, because of course there is no reason to make all of this if we don't provide the good tools for developers to try to do it. Of course, we have to teach the developers how they can do it, and of course, giving tools also for monitoring and debugging and optimizing the process. So we are already offering 3 official libraries: PHP, Ruby, and .NET. JavaScript is about to be released in a few weeks. At the end, all that we have been talking is this 6 lines of code for a developer. A developer can download our library, and in less than 10 minutes, they can process their first file, compressing or whatever they need. Being easy to develop doesn't mean be less powerful, because of course, with these 6 lines of code can be also much more. We can complicate a little bit more the example. For example, the 2 first line is where you authenticate. You define the task, for example, a compressed task. You can set attributes to this task created. You can set, for example, the set output file name that at first you cannot think is that useful. But if, for example, if the output files are multiple files coming from only one PDF, for example, for when extracting images, embed images in a PDF, it can be very useful, because you can name image per image all the images that will be created. You can add a file from local storage, and the second file we are adding is from an URL, a link. We can set a rotation for the first file, and we can set a password for the second file. We execute the task, it will be processed, and we download in a local storage, and we immediately after we delete the task. It's as easy as this. And of course, we offer a good documentation, complete API reference. We offer library guides with samples in Ruby, in .NET and PHP. We offer also debugging options and of course monitoring tools. You can integrate our API request and you can see in real time on Google Analytics the requests that are being made with your API client to the API REST. And of course, we offer mail support and support via GitHub and anything. And the idea is that if a service like this works for a service like us, like iLovePDF, we think that it can be useful for many other services that want to offer a solution that needs a solution like a web service like us. I don't know if you want, if you have any questions, we will be, or for me or for Christoph, we'll be happy to answer them. I don't know if I am.
Thank you.
I have been.
Good time we did not get a cough here. So we have questions from you? Yeah.
I have some questions about mobile usage of PDF. Because it's just a general question, because right now for me it's like PDF, I see no usage on the phone for it as reviewing it. Because for me a PDF is very traditional printing thing. What do you think does the PDF change in the mobile world within the next 24 months? Do you think it will be a bigger part like PDFs with video, image, interactive, whatever? What do you think is it going to PDF?
I don't know if it's already in next 24 months. So I think nowadays you don't have the tools really on mobile devices except for viewing. So I think for people who do not have a desktop computer or just use their tablets for doing their stuff, if they need to want a job and have their CV and they need all the documents merged in one document, or they want to have it in PDF-A or so. So all this kind of tools, I think that's not available, not good available nowadays. So for me, that's one thing that you could do. I think another one would be next generation PDF, where we really can in the viewer really see the document on your screen, so it adapts to the screen size. I think that's viewing is one thing where it's very limited nowadays. Also, I think so that's more on the client, on the user side. I think more in companies and in workflows. So what I expect that mobile devices are more and more used. If we have a worker that's on the road and he needs to fill out some form or just view a plan or so that we have a system where you can access your data or can add your input, and you have a whole workflow so that you integrate this with PDF on your device, or that PDF is just one technology used in such an integration process.
Thank you.
It was a very open question. Other comments from mobile guys?
No mobile question.
Okay. Let's go on.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. The PDF Tools app will use the iLovePDF API as an endpoint, or
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, it uses the endpoint. It's built so that you could also use other endpoints if necessary, but the main endpoint would be iLovePDF. So yeah, we build it together so that the customer can use it. Since we are just a developing company, we do not want to host anything ourselves. So that's the partnership that we have.
Christoph have been developing it using our API reference. Yes, the documentation at the end.
So the documentation is.
We hope so.
Yes.
That's good. I think that.
Background of those questions?
Can you explain a little bit more about the licensing model?
Licensing model of it.
It's only technology.
About the API.
Yeah, is it
Yeah.
open source or is it?
Yeah.
Or is it?
We offer a free tier of for the API REST, but of course there is a licensing model based on the file volume per month, and depending on the number of files you're processing per month, this is the license. On our website, it's everything explained.
Marco, great job on everything. I mean, like, we've known each other for a little while, and your website that you put is quite amazing. On the API that you've built, do you give access to all the different features, or like the exact same features that you've done on the endpoint on the website, or for now it's one by one? What do you have on your API right now that is available?
Right now, we are offering almost every tool. There are some tools that we cannot offer, but we will be looking forward to try to offer exactly the same tools. But in the API, also we will offer more professional tools, not for the final user, because we know that the final users has their needs are more simpler than the ones that a company can have. So for now, we already are offering more in the API than in the .com, excepting these tools that we cannot offer in the API. But the options for splitting, for example, are much more in the API than in the .com. For example, also for other tools like PDF to JPG or JPG to PDF, watermark, and everything. More questions?
More questions? I wonder, you spoke about,
Can you explain a bit more about the fail-safe procedures that you have if one data center location becomes unavailable or goes down? How exactly does the other take over, and how much does the customer realize or doesn't he?
It's completely transparent for the client, of course. This is our problem. It's not the problem of our customer. So it starts, for example, if it fails. The two locations are Gravelines and Strasbourg. If Gravelines goes down, automatically you will be redirected to the balancer in Strasbourg. This balancer, of course, I am making it simpler, but controls all the workers, and it assigns you always a healthy one. So you will be always directed in the second request of the workflow. You will be directed directly to upload your file to a healthy server that will be the one that will process your files. And of course, internally we have proxies and everything, and we balance it with master-to-master replication, for example, in database, or HA proxies that that are balancing between them. This is a little bit technical, but at the end, virtual IPs and everything, and it has been tested, and it works.
Okay, so you basically did not implement too much of that in your own infrastructure, but you're relying on the data center, on the database system.
Exactly.
That they can provide replication.
Correctly. No, but the system of replication is of our own. We don't rely on this replication we only get the dedicated servers in this third party.
At this point, I have another one. You've mentioned that the output right now is 600 files per minute.
Yeah.
Do you monitor as well what's incoming, so that, like, to avoid spamming, to avoid, like, people trying to crash the API or anything like that? Because we all know, unfortunately, it's a reality of ours. So how do you filter the traffic, aside of ID filtering and everything, obviously, in the API? So how do you block excessive requests? And the second part of the question on the output is the 600 files is dependent on the file size, because I was assuming file size would have an issue, would have, like, potentially as well an impact on the output.
So regarding the first question, it was about we to avoid request flooding or anything, we implemented rate limiting. That means that of course we reject all the requests that are not coming from an authenticated client, API client. Yeah. And of course, if this API client start to make 1 million requests per every 10 seconds, we block that client automatically. And we, of course, we count every request and we control this, of course. And the second question was about?
Is on the output. Is there any difference?
Yeah, of course, it's not the same that merging a PDF than compressing one PDF. It's much easier merging 50 PDFs than compressing one big PDF. So at the end, it's our problem. It's not the problem of the API client. That's why they choose us. We have to manage the best way we can to offer the best service and without that the API client has to bother about if will be slower or different kinds of. That's why we standardize the process of uploading, processing, and downloading, because at the end everything is the same. It's input, output. And that's it. Of course, the power of needed for compressing it's higher, but the average we have an average and we work on it with it. So it's what we are using to scale our infrastructure.
Okay, I think this was a question. Thank you very much again. If you have further questions, then obviously Christoph and Marco are here over the days to talk or after that. Thank you again.
Thank you.